Friede, hoi, hoi, alle Glieder, und wir singen fröhliche Lieder, hoi, hoi, hoi. Und wir sagen, wir sind Helene, hoi, Helene, als ob es ist mit Tau bei Kenen, hoi, hoi, hoi. Alle drei zusammen, alle drei zusammen, alle drei zusammen.
My mother came from Vaslui at the age of 16. She had been apprenticed to a tailor at the age of 6, didn't have a day of schooling, working from morning to night. At the age of 16, she decided to pack it in. They realized that they will make a new life for themselves in America. She found a wonderful job in Eaton's department store, which had a large custom tailoring and alteration department. The foreman comes over to her after a few months of work and says, we got to work tomorrow. And she says to him, Ich arbeite nicht auf Shabbos. I don't work on Shabbos. And I'm leaving. Oh, no, it had nothing to do with religion. It was a cultural thing. This concept, and again, it's such a marvelous thing. I mean, that's why Jews are such an unusual people. You don't have to be religious to have the sense of your connectedness to this history.
And there were stories about my father's grandmother having a restaurant on the Lower East Side where at night she'd push the tables together and let new, as they said, greenhorns sleep on the table until they found a place to live. So those are also peripherally about being Jewish, but a lot of it is more about being an immigrant.
My grandfather was part of the Jewish artist left. He had to testify before the Hewitt Commission during the McCarthy era, and he was blacklisted.
My parents were very involved in Yiddish literature. They were friendly with Yiddish writers, and it did not prevent me from speaking English. My mother used to say she couldn't get over it. When I was 2 years old, I'd say something to her in Yiddish, turn around and say something in English to somebody else.
When I was little, it was explained to me as we were Spanish Jews before I knew the word Sephardic. And I didn't understand that because my grandma's first language was Spanish, they told me. But it ends up, then I learned later that meant Ladino. So.
My father's parents were immigrants. And they came out of a place where there were pogroms. I remember that he would never let me put an electric menorah in the window. He was afraid that the Catholics from across Coney Island Avenue would throw rocks through the window.
The first place I lived until I was 6 was almost 100% Catholic. And we would come home and find huge things, written dirty Jew on our yard.
How do you think your daughter's development of her Jewish identity has differed from your own?
She's much more drawn to prayer, to a heart-oriented sense of being Jewish than I was, and that I'm only just now being drawn to, and I think partly as a result of her.
And if I have children, I'll definitely show them Judaism. I wouldn't force it upon them. But I think it's a really special cultural thing to keep passing on.
You can think you're setting them on a path, but they make their own choices. So.
I don't want to close the lights. I don't want Judaism to have been obliterated from the history of their lives.
I've always enjoyed being Jewish. I grew up in a Jewish lefty family. I grew up with the idea that to be a good Jew, you don't cross picket lines. That you have to be radical, you have to act well in the world for social justice, and that's what being Jewish is about.
I don't really have a Jewish identity per se, but I have a Jewish awareness that's evolving into an identity. For me, I identify most strongly on a cultural level. I was afraid that my curiosity would be met with ridicule. I'm making presumptions, basically. And the thing is, it was completely the opposite, because when I got to the point where I finally did say, I'm just going to go, what's the worst that can happen? I was like, why didn't I do this sooner? And everyone was just so welcoming and friendly, and I liked that so much. And it was just different from the experiences I had before.
Growing up in America, you think, Jewish is this. It's an Ashkenazi Jew. But it's not And there's so many Jews all over. I really saw, so much diversity of Jews from all over.
I was raised much more to identify with that. I think the most significant thing is that I was a red diaper baby. Really, I think the turning point was Workman Circle. It's made me feel more Jewish, or more secure in the kind of Jewish that I feel that I am.
Mm-hmm. The Judaism that was practiced at Workman Circle felt comfortable and felt like a language that I spoke, and I felt like I could be Jewish on my terms.